Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we are going to talk about airdrops. Only today we're going to talk about them in a different way because it's no longer hypothetical. It does appear that the U.S. is going to begin doing that. So we are going to go through questions that have already come in, and then I'm going to anticipate a few questions that are likely to arrive. And put out some information that I am certain is going to cause an issue at some point because it always does. Okay, so first, in case you missed yesterday's video, what's happening? The United States is going to begin airdropping in relief supplies into Gaza. Looks like they're going to do it in coordination with Jordan and probably a few other countries, or alternatively, depending on who you talk to, other countries are going to run their own operations. Doesn't matter. The more the merrier on this. The number one question that has come in since this information broke was, how does this actually happen? Wile E. Coyote style. Okay, the U.S. Air Force has a number of different planes that are well suited to this. The supplies are put on pallets in the back of the planes. The planes fly over. The pallets are locked in place during flight. Then they're unlocked, and they kind of get scooted out the back, and they have parachutes on them, and they land. It's really that simple to describe. It's harder to actually do it and get it to land where you want it to. So that's what's going to happen. My understanding is, I guess they're going to use C130s and C17s to do this. That's the C17s. That's a whole lot of food. That's a whole lot of stuff that is distributed with each one. Okay, where? My guess is along the West Coast, along the western side. Mainly because that area seems to have the best place to drop it and reduce the risk of something bad happening on the ground. Meaning the pallet doesn't land in somebody's living room, or it doesn't land on rubble and make it unsafe to get to, stuff like that. That would, to me, that seems like the most likely place. Other places that it could be done are not always. Think about places that have open fields. Sometimes a good place to do a drop like this is often cemeteries as well. Not ideal for other reasons, but it's safer for the living. Okay, so from there, what other things might they consider? Hopefully, the first day they do it, they inundate the area. Let's say it's the coast. They just inundate the coast. So there are so many pallets, there aren't a bunch of people trying to get stuff off of one pallet. That would reduce a lot of risk and reduce the level of anxiety overall. What are they going to be dropping? Initially, MREs, meals ready to eat, U.S. military rations. I know some people are already groaning, but let's be honest, they're perfect for this. They're easy to distribute either individually or by the case. The case is the right size for one person to be able to move it. They contain everything you need for that meal, to include the means to cook it. You need water. Something that always comes up when MREs are distributed outside of people who are familiar with them. The date on the side of the case is not an expiration date. It is an inspection date. Two very different things. If you see it being described as an expiration date in future social media posts, correct that information. The worst thing in the world would be for there to be food there and people be afraid to eat it. Those are inspection dates. I have personally eaten many a meal well beyond the date on that box. If an MRE is bad, generally speaking, you're going to know when you open it. And there will be no doubt that it is not something you want to eat. So that's information that may need to be countered as it goes out. Okay, what else? We talked in the comments section, a few of us talked about a waterborne operation and bringing in supplies that way. It could actually be done much faster and much more efficiently that way. We were talking about how there were downsides to it in the way people would complain about boots on the ground, so on and so forth. Didn't really think it was likely. Apparently, Biden is considering doing that as well. And according to reporting, the Israeli government is, quote, very receptive to that plan, which is surprising to me. There are risks with that as well, but a whole lot more could be done faster that way, even though there is a slightly elevated risk to the people providing the relief. The obvious thing that has come in a lot, well, what if Palestinian combatants take it? Yeah, that's a risk when it comes to any food distribution thing in a conflict zone. That's a risk. The fact that somebody else might do something bad, they take that food and not distribute it, that does not mean that you shouldn't do something good. Okay? There are a number of people who are anti-Hamas, U.S. policymakers who have said this, who have said, well, we have to find out how to stop it from falling into Hamas's hands. Okay. If you are truly anti-Hamas, and that's your stance, and you understood anything about this type of conflict, you would want that to happen. You would want it to happen. You wouldn't view that as a bad thing, because if they took it and they didn't distribute it to the people who needed it, it would erode their support. It would make it more likely for, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, a revitalized Palestinian Authority to be able to assert governance. But since you don't know anything about this type of conflict, perhaps you should just be quiet. There is no reason to oppose this. There is no reason to not do this. Any attempt to manufacture one is not going to hold up to scrutiny. There is a risk that Hamas is going to get some of it. I imagine they will. I wouldn't even say it's a risk. It's going to happen to some degree. If they do what people are suggesting they'll do, it won't actually help them. It will hurt them. I don't foresee that being something that occurs on any widespread level. They may take it and then distribute it themselves to get the PR points for it, because they do understand this type of conflict. But I do not think that they're going to take it and not distribute it. That seems incredibly unlikely, and it would be a really bad move. And again, the risk of somebody else doing something bad does not negate the U.S.'s moral responsibility here. This is something the U.S. should be obligated to do on a moral level. I understand. I'm the guy who always says it's foreign policy. Morality has nothing to do with it. From a foreign policy standpoint, there is zero downside to the United States doing this. There is no real objection to this. Any objection to this will be manufactured. So that's where it's at. We don't know we don't know the scale of it yet. We don't have that rumor mill up and running yet. What we do know is that it is not going to be a one-off. It's not going to be a token, but we don't know how widespread it's going to be, and whether or not the U.S. has the will to sustain it until it's not needed. I would hope that the waterborne stuff actually does kick off. That was not something I thought would be on the table, because I didn't think the Israelis would be okay with that, and I didn't think U.S. policymakers would want to accept the elevated risk. But way more can be done way faster that route. That would be great if that happened. So it does look like a whole bunch of U.S. service members are going to get that pretty purple medal with the hand on it. And I personally cannot wait for the day when the racks of service members have those with stars on them instead of other ribbons. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.